Hey, welcome to Mental Game Live. I'm Dr. Bhrett McCabe. So excited that you've joined us here for the very first episode of a new concept, something we're so excited about. Why? Because the mental game is so important to the way you perform, the way you train, the way you act, and most importantly, the way you grow as a competitor, whatever your competitive environment is. I'm Dr. Bhrett McCabe. I'm a clinical psychologist, a sports psychologist. I work with some of the best players in the world in golf. I work with some of the best teams and players in baseball and a couple national titles in football as well. But I was also an athlete. I won 2 national titles at LSU. So I am pumped to be here. Am I a little nervous? Absolutely. Am I excited? Absolutely. And so tonight, I'm going to give you a little insight into our vision, where we want to go, and what I can do to help you. Make sure, as you're watching, you drop messages and comments in our comment window here on YouTube. We'll be able to come back and watch them and follow them the best we can. I've got an amazing simulator room out here, full swing simulator behind me. Over this episodes, over the course of this year, we're going to be diving into some very cool things back here. Tonight, we got to keep it simple. We got to come out of the gate strong. We got to do our job to the best of our abilities. And most importantly, we have to deliver for you. Now, how are we going to do that? Mental Game Live is a show. It is a show format that's going to have 5 segments. And every single week, the weeks that I'm here, if I'm not here, it's usually because I'm on tour at a major, doing something like that, and I just don't trust the circumstances. But here in my studio, we're going to dive into some stuff. And you're going to see some changes as we go along. We've got 6 cameras in here, but tonight we're going to use 1 just to make sure we do it right. You know what? Got to make sure we deliver right out of the gate. But over the course of this year, you're going to see more and more stuff, and we're really excited about that. There's been a lot of great influences that I've had that have brought me to this point. If you followed me on Barstool in the foreplay with Frankie Borelli and watched him in the Fixin' Frankie, thank you for joining me, coming to me from a new area. If you know my work with the PGA Tour and my players out there, they give me such great information and ability, and working with the coaches out there on a regular basis. A good friend of mine, Michael Bhrett, has been an amazing resource to me over the years to help set up and design this room. So there's been a lot of really good influences. Over the course of this year, I'm going to try to give you some insight. I'm not going to just kind of go with the same mumbo jumbo of the mental game of think like process and positive thoughts. We're going to get into the real nitty gritty. The thing that is designed, it kind of formed the way that I go about doing my work, is I am a little bit different. I'm not afraid of that, okay? And I'm going to probably say some things that you're going to go, I don't know if I agree with that. Then hit me back. But most importantly about Mental Game Live is this is going to be interactive. In upcoming episodes, we're going to have live interviews with some of my players, some of the coaches, some people that we can learn from. And I get this question a lot about Mental Game Live. Who is our audience? Is it a coach? Absolutely. It's a coach that wants to get better to know how to impact their players in a better way. Is it players? Without question. Because where are you going for your mental game information right now? You watching motivational videos? You watching rah-rahs? Or are you watching recipe books that can teach you how to do it? I like to think Mental Game Live is going to be one of those recipe books. I'm going to give you the ingredients, and I'm going to show you how to use them. And then what about parents? Absolutely. If you're a parent of a youth athlete, I hope you're watching this with them. Okay? I hope that you're going about this and studying and sharing information, because the game is hard. Whatever sport you play, it is difficult, and there's a journey associated with it. My entire team is involved. We got people watching the comments. We got Basham behind the camera, and he's going to be joining me here in a little bit. And it's important for all of us to participate. All right. So we're going to start off every Mental Game Live with our first segment, and that's always going to be the current events that we have seen in the past week or so in the sports world that we can learn from. You know, when we're watching professional sporting events or college events, if you're not watching to learn, you're missing valuable information. There's so many amazing things that happen during the course of a good match, good tournament, Super Bowl that we can learn from. And this past weekend at the PGA Tour Genesis Invitational, there was a couple things that were just really, really cool. And number one was I got to watch my player Jon Rahm return to #1 in the world. That was a very exciting thing to watch. But during that back nine, playing at the Genesis, which is hosted by Tiger Woods, so it has a lot of meaning. The golf course is like a U.S. Open style course. It's demanding across every element of the game. There were some things that happened during that back nine that I thought were relevant and important for every single person out there who competes. You saw two of the top players in the world, John Rahm and Max Homa, as well as Keith Mitchell, going down the stretch, and they were playing and competing with immense pressure. And you could see it in their process, their decision-making, and their execution. They were dealing with so many of the same things that you and I go through. But many times, we don't think they go through that. See, we have this impression that sometimes the best players in the world have it all figured out. And what I saw when I was watching that was I saw players moving through their routines faster. I saw players communicate faster, trying shots that they may not have always done because they felt that they needed it there and that the pressure was getting them, and yet they still performed. Now, why can they perform in that setting and we struggle? Well, they are the top players in the world, and they have put themselves in those situations as many times as they possibly can. Mental Game Live is going to be understanding what those factors are. See, pressure, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, pressure is the ultimate separator of players. It's the place that creates the cracks in our foundation and, more importantly, in our armor. And when you look at that and you understand why people struggle there, it's not like it's a failure. So when we're watching our players compete and we're watching them struggle, what happens is we want to help them and we want to point out everything that they do wrong. Oh, my God, I can't believe they did that. Oh, my God, I can't believe he made that decision. Oh, I can't believe he missed that shot. When in reality, instead, we need to say, how great is this that they're there? Now, what are you learning in that situation? See, John Rahm, Max Homa, and Keith Mitchell, who's had a very good month. He's a great player. He's a winner on the PGA Tour, but he's also had an excellent month. See, they're players that have been in that situation quite often. This isn't new to them. This isn't something that they haven't gone through. They're learning every experience that they surge and then they struggle. They surge and they struggle. But after that struggle, they learn. They learn something about their game, their approach, their decision-making, and how they fight. See, that builds. And too often when we get in those situations, it's easy to throw everything away and say, oh, I cannot believe that happened. But we have to learn. That's why I love to watch professional sporting events. A week and a half ago, we watched the Super Bowl. Coming down the stretch, fourth quarter, unbelievable game. Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks, maybe pushing towards to ever play the game. Definitely a phenomenal athlete. His dad was a major league pitcher. And as he's coming down the stretch and they're leading down the game, right, there was a very pivotal holding call. And I watched social media people, I cannot believe they would make that call in that situation. And my answer is, I can't believe that official had the guts to make the right call. You know why? Because the Chiefs forced the Eagles to make a mistake. They forced them. See, in any kind of sporting event, there's 3 to 4 inflection points that happen during the game, during the match, during the tournament, or anything. And what happens is people go about it, and our job is to force those inflection points. It's to force that inflection. And what you hope for is that they're not ready for that and that we have to leverage against them. That was a very simple play that James Bradbury made a very, very bad choice on. Now, was it instinctual? Sure. Was it pressure? Absolutely. But that's the job of the opponent, is to force that. And our job as a player is to be ready for that. See, the thing that would have been great as a player for James Bradbury is to say, keep your hands in front. Don't get caught up. Don't put an official in that position. Make the play. But don't commit the penalty. The penalty was tragic. It allowed the Chiefs to run out the clock and kick the game-winning field goal. At the biggest moment, you have to be ready for those inflection points. My coach used to call it how to win awareness, HWA. Great teams, great players, great leaders have the ability to see a half second ahead in the future and anticipate, because just like we talked about in that first point, they have that experience. They know what they're doing. They know how going about it. They understand that that is difficult. They're not lowering their attention and focus. They're rising it up. They're not increasing tension, but they're dialing in their focus a little bit more, which we're going to come back to in segment 2. What other things have I seen in this past season or this past couple of weeks? Well, what about the Full Swing documentary if you're a golf fan? Now, I'm going to give you some full disclosure. I haven't watched the whole thing yet. It's kind of close to home as I work out there on a regular basis. But you're getting to see players and them dropping the veil a little bit, pulling the curtains back and showing you what they go through. And I got a lot of comments about Brooks Koepka and his battles. And what I'll tell you is that's more the norm than the exception. Now, different causes and different reasons, but the truth of the matter is what Full Swing is going to expose and continue to expose is the difficulty of the journey. See, when we watch professional athletes at the top of their game, we assume that that is the standard that everybody should aspire to. That's not the standard. The standard is the late nights, the dark days, the miserable times, the struggles that people are going through that they overcome along the way. That's what we don't often see. And it's always funny. We always laugh around the Olympics as they'll always come in with a feel-good story. But what you see in the Olympics, what you see at the professional ranks, and what you see in those environments are people having to push through so many different struggles. What I want every one of us to understand as you're going through this, and whatever you're doing, is that struggle is the norm, not the exception. Struggle is the invitation, not the rejection. Struggle is the door that gives you, or the window that gives you insight into what your process is, not the validation whether or not you belong or not. Too often we see struggle as a rejection of what we think we can do. Full Swing is showing you that there's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of team members involved. You know, a lot of times I hear people say, well, you got to think like Tiger Woods, you got to play like Kobe, you got to be like LeBron or Michael, you got to, you know, be like Simone Biles. Like, are you kidding me? They're the greatest outliers we've ever seen in sports. They're brilliant competitors, but they're not the norm. The norm are players that push through to achieve what they can in the moment. Study and watch and learn and look just beyond in those documentaries of what it takes, the difficulty, the dark nights, the exhaustion, the doubts, the fears that are the standards. I promise you, you'll understand more. Speaking of that, let's dive into Jalen Hurts, huh? Man, what a great player. I was fortunate enough to watch Jalen firsthand at Alabama for a couple years, 3 years, I guess. And I watched him rise up to, I appreciate that. Smash the like button. Keep bringing it. I'm going to try to watch these comments as I go along. Wendy had a question real quick about Joel Damon. Look, I love Joel. I love Gino, his caddy. Know them a long time. They're great. His self-doubt and protection mechanism. I don't work with Joel firsthand, but I'll tell you this. There are certain people who have high belief, and there are certain people who love to play the underdog. Joel does a great job playing the underdog. Don't worry. If you have a wallet full of cash, he'll find a way to take it. He's not afraid of it out there. But I think what you saw was somebody who, that's his modus operandi, right? It's how he works through his stuff. Some of us are super, goal-directed, and we look at the top of the mountain, and others look at ourselves and go, I just don't know. Maybe I'll dive in on a future episode about the different competitive mindsets. And if you read Break Free from Suckville, you'll see that in there. Okay? So I'll come back. I'm going to try to come back and answer some of these questions. These are great. Keep them going. But Jalen Hurts. I watched Jalen win a locker room his freshman year at Alabama and take over. He took over not because he was the most talented quarterback on the field. See, you can measure guys in the 7-on-7s and how they threw it. Jalen Hurts won the team because he was the best quarterback on the field. Not just because he was the best quarterback because of skills and talent. He did it because he won the locker room. Players trusted him. He worked his tail off, and he did all the little things right. That how to win awareness, Jalen Hurts had it. But what happened was, when he was at Alabama, was a more talented player who embodied much of the same skill sets that he did. The ability to win a locker room, the ability to make the throws, and the ability to lead a team. And Tua Tagovailoa. Tua comes in and takes over. And Jalen had a choice. See, Jalen had a choice to pee in everybody's cereal and be miserable all the time, because that would have been an easy thing to do when you get beaten out. But he didn't. See, when Tua came in and relieved Jalen in the national title game, and Tua threw the pass in the famous 2nd and 26 that won the national title over Georgia, Jalen was the first one to celebrate with him. The next year in the SEC championship in the Georgia Dome, I was there. Tua goes down and gets hurt, and Jalen comes in and rallies the team to a fourth-quarter victory. It was a made-for-TV moment, but it was not a surprise to anybody in our building. So when you see Jalen Hurts leading the Philadelphia Eagles, there's an entire process behind him. And a process is something that he said in his post game. He said, failure is the greatest teacher we have. And I'm going to look at how I can do this to get better. He didn't sit there and put a towel over his head and be angry and frustrated. Instead, he said, I'm going to embrace this and learn to become better. People doubted him at every step of the way, but instead of being doubted, he got determined. He took that and focused himself on what it took to get better and lead a team to the Super Bowl, even when the media doubted him. You think that fuels him? Heck yeah, it does. So back to that question about self-doubt, that's what happens. See, you have to take it as fuel and make it part of you, not as a tattoo or a scarlet letter, but as the motivation to push you through whatever you're doing in your life. And finally, I wrote a pretty good, I was able to contribute to an article by Sean Zach in Golf Magazine. I think Golf Magazine. Hope I'm right, Sean. About Scottsdale and TPC Scottsdale, the 16th hole. When you're on the tee on the 11th tee, it's so loud. On 17, 15, you're hearing it and all this noise. Yeah, I love that, Steve. I had my goals before you had your opinion. Heck yeah. You know, the beauty of that is players in that one tournament a year love that amphitheater feeling. They love it. But the difference is it's not like it's quiet and then somebody yells on them. It's a constant buzz. But they know that they may get booed. They know they're going to get jeered. They know that there's more people at that golf tournament who don't even know there's a golf tournament going on, right? They're there to drink, to party, and have a great time in great weather. And you took a year like this where it was a Super Bowl. So what I've always told my players is we're not going to try to drown out that noise. It's kind of like if you and I are sitting in a coffee shop, which I do most of my writing. We're sitting there and we're talking and I'm working, and all of a sudden this annoying person sits down next to me. It's going to grab my attention. But if I get angry that it grabs my attention, I'm now giving more power to that distraction. I'm now giving that person more control to control me. See, what I have to do is look at it and go, distracted, okay, and then I come back. So whenever we're in life, right, I get this question often. How do you sustain focus? And the question is you don't. You redirect it. So Scottsdale was a perfect example, a place for us to practice, to train, to be in a scenario where you learn to get distracted and then refocus it back in, like dialing in our focus and our attention. The 5 segments of this week that we learned from. If you've got one that you've liked, make sure you send me a DM on my social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, and we'll pull them in. If you see something that's interesting, we may even in the future pull the clip and be able to show you the clip. But we're learning how to do all this stuff too. Okay? All right. When we come back, we're going to go to our second segment of the night, and we're going to talk about focus a little deeper. So focus runs like a funnel, okay? Good focus. And throughout your consciousness, you have all kinds of thoughts that are going all over the place. Yours is probably a little bit like that, okay, which is fine, okay? And imagine that there's a filter here, okay? Something has to come in that filter before a shot and come down into the funnel to lead to a result, okay? Well, the first step is what we consider is kind of like awareness, okay? Awareness. What's going on? We're in the middle of a fairway. You have 118 to a front pin, okay? Then that leads to a strategy. Where do I want to hit it? How do I want to get it there? Which then usually will visualize. So that's why I have you verbalize a shot. So that's ideal. It's wide to narrow. But when we get in trouble, what you've been is your funnel's been upside down. Okay? So that same level of thoughts going through here, and a negative thought, a negative, like something bad right here, grabs it and flips it over. And that awareness is like, uh-oh, we got danger. All right, well, your strategy then starts falling apart because your whole strategy is how to avoid that danger. And then by the time you get over the ball for the execution phase, you got 400 thoughts in your head. So we've got to flip our funnel. Pretty good, isn't it? That was from Fix and Frankie. If you haven't watched it, please do. Let's drive up that watch count, that viewer count. I want the foreplay guys to realize that this is some good stuff and we got more stuff coming. We actually do have some more stuff coming. All right. And in the course of 2023, you're going to see us out on the golf course a lot more with some really cool celebrities and people that you can relate to. So be on the lookout. It's coming. And I just got to get out of the office, which would be good. Probably need a little bit better tan. So let's talk about focus. Focus is, have you ever had a day where you got 9 hours sleep? You slept so good. You got up, you exercised, you worked out, you've had a good day, and you just can't pay attention? Okay. I mean, it makes no sense because you've done everything right. You look at your Whoop band, it says you're good, it says you got a good night's sleep, all that other stuff, and it ain't there. And then other days where you've been running late, you haven't got any sleep, you had to get up, the dog had to go out all night long, and yet you could focus when you competed. Like, that's the weird thing about focus that many people struggle with, is that the why part of focus doesn't always make sense. And so a couple of years ago, I was sitting down and talking to a player, and I was talking about how when I pitched, we used to have this idea that we would go from wide to narrow. And our job was to repeat it 75 to 120 times in a game, depending on how many pitches we threw. And you'd have to do in the warm-up and the bullpen in between innings and all the other things. But the thing that used to drive my coach crazy was when he knew that our focus would drop. And lo and behold, you would make a mistake. You'd either throw a non-competitive pitch or you would get absolutely hammered. And Basham, who was a catcher at Ole Miss, understands that as a catcher, when the ball goes over the fence, that's not a good place to be. Not as bad as the pitcher feels, but the catcher doesn't feel good either, right? So focus is critical. And I started thinking, I was like, well, focus works like a funnel, right? It starts wide and it narrows in, and then it goes back out again, and it repeats that process. That makes sense. So the problem isn't when it's working. The problem is when it's not. I started thinking about it from a perspective of that funnel and realizing that our funnel, when it gets upside down, it starts working. So Basham's going to put up our two different ones. So let's talk about the blue one right now. That's our ideal one. And this one is what we call when it's perfect, okay? And my screen's right here, so I'm going to kind of look up corner to the screen. But the blue one, the beauty of it is that when it works at its best, that first layer of awareness is kind of like acceptance. You ever been in a position, whatever you're doing, it's like, I know that person next to me is bothering me. And I know that I'm out here on the golf course. I know I'm on the basketball court. I know I'm whatever. And it's noisy, but then I can dial in. I'm aware of what's going on. I know what's happening. I know I'm starving and I can't pay attention, but that's okay. I'm accepting of it. And all that scenario then leads us into, what do I want to do with the situation I'm in? Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is the number one place where players break down when it comes to focus. They have a really, really pitiful awareness. They have a very low understanding of what they're feeling and thinking, and they're very judgmental, and it breaks down when it goes to a strategy. But when you're great, that awareness leads to a clear strategy. What do I want to do right here, right now? And then you visualize it and you step into the shot, the pitch, the basketball, free throw, whatever. The thing about this is when you're playing a reactionary sport like hockey, basketball, football, you have to do it much faster. When you're on a slower, what I call an initiation sport, like pitching, like golf, hitting a tennis serve, so forth like that, you have to work it and you have the time to allow that funnel to work. But when you're playing a reaction sport, that awareness has to happen before each play. I had an NFL quarterback I worked with for many years when he was in college, and this is something that we did. We came to the line of scrimmage. We became aware of what was going on. What's our first read? And he would verbalize it in his head, and he would call it out like he was the offensive coordinator. That forced the visualization, because that last step of execution, we want that to be reactionary. I don't want a lot of cognitive thought there, because here's what happens. When we go to this red one right here, the red one is the negative one, okay? And what happens is that awareness stage says, oh my God, something's wrong. This isn't working. This is not good. There's threat. There's danger. I don't feel good. I don't feel like I'm doing anything well. There's a problem. And that awareness stage says, danger, danger, danger. Instead of saying, I got it, it says, I don't know what to do with it. And then the strategy that's developed because of it is developing a protection mechanism versus an execution. It's funny how that works, isn't it? And now that strategy is really good to get us out of trouble, but not perform at our best. And see, then what happens is because our mind starts scrambling for escapes and how to get out of it, we don't really visualize anything. And then we go to execution. Our mind is wide open. And that's why the game gets fast. That's why the game, you feel like you've gone way overboard and so forth. And you're like, what the heck just happened? See, when we're parents in the stands and we're like, hey, keep your right arm in, or make sure you make that putt or whatever, we're breaking the player's ability to funnel their focus. See why we think we're helping, we're not. What we have to do is train people how to work their funnel over time. And what are the factors that contribute to a good funnel? And what are the things that are threats? Normally, starvation and dehydration, terrible threats to a good funnel. But also, the biggest one that is a great contributor is acceptance. It is what it is. It be what it be, right? It is what it is. I don't need to do anything. I just need to be accepting of what I'm doing, thinking, and feeling, and I can adapt. And where do we see great funnels happen? Well, when you watch, let's go back to that tournament this past weekend at the Genesis. I saw players who worked. They were really good with their caddies. John Rahm, Max Homa, Keith Mitchell, Patrick Cantley, Colin Morikawa, those guys coming down the stretch, working with their caddies. Their caddies, elite caddies, work with them to get their funnels upright. They make them verbalize. But if you don't have a caddy, or even on the mound, when I pitched, I would find a spot on the ground as an anchor, take a deep breath, and I would flip my own funnel. And I would know that there was times that my funnel would get a little wobbly, a little wonky, and I'd work to get it back. See, the funnel mentality is so critical to help you perform better that if you want to get better, it's not always about technique, but it's the application of your technique under pressure. Learning the funnel of focus will give you that. Look, coaches, if you're out there and you're training teams and you're not teaching them how to focus, remember I talked about those inflection points, those moments in games where things change course? People who funnels are upside down, they're going to come off the ice, they're going to come off the court, they're going to come off the field and go, what just happened? Players who funnels are right are going to come off and say, Coach, did you see that it was about to happen? And I was there. That's what this is all about. Funnel of focus. It's in my book, The Mindside Manifesto. I talk about it often because it's that important. It's one of the most important skills of the mental game. When we come back, segment 3, we're going to dive into a few Q&As. All right, I'm back. Thank you. Some great comments. And please let me know if you're liking this. If you're not, let me know too. I can take the criticism. But I hope this is helpful. My goal for Mental Game Live is that this is the #1 source of content on the mental game out there. Like, I understand in today's game, people aren't going to read books. I'm going to keep writing them. But I know people, kids aren't going to read books. I hope this is something that you'll continue to see from our social media clips and our content, that this is must-watch television when we do it. And on my website, BhrettMcCabe.com, you're going to have all the dates when Mental Game goes live. So I hope we continue to develop this and it gets bigger and better and just keeps delivering at a rate. This is something that we've really worked hard on, and it's just the start. It's just the start. To my people in the South Louisiana, South Mississippi, we're not going to talk about Mobile. Happy Mardi Gras. It's Tuesday night. It's Mardi Gras night. Most people are done with Mardi Gras by this point. All right, let's go to segment number 3. All right. So on my Instagram, every Monday and Thursday for the last year, I've been doing an Ask Me Anything. And you can ask any question there is. I usually answer all of them because I'm just honored that people care enough to ask me a question. But what we've been doing is we've been collecting topics and doing this. So what are the common themes that people have questions about? It's going to fill out a whole lot of our upcoming Mental Game Lives because you'll be amazed at how much consistency of player to player there is. I told a friend of mine the other day in the golf coaching world, I said, it would be nice if I could put a apparatus on somebody and measure their movements. I could watch their running speed. I could see how high they jump and know what they're doing. What's hard about the mental game is I can't tap into somebody's inner thoughts. In fact, when people come to me, a lot of times I don't get the truth for a couple sessions. And I know that. A coach will call me and say, oh my God, did you know this? Did they tell you this? Did this? And I'm like, they haven't told me that. But why would they? They don't trust me yet. It has to take some time. Is it okay for coaches to shout instructions from the bench? Only if they work. And that's what makes good coaches. If you watch great coaches, they're going to shout and give information, but it's one of those things that you better be good at it. Don't overwhelm them. I don't know about you, but I don't like people yelling instructions from me from the backseat of a car. Sucker for golf. I have a junior tournament coming up, and I've been in winter for the last 4 months, and I'm worried that my game will be rusty. What do you recommend? How about we accept the fact that your game is going to be rusty because you've been in winter golf, lower your expectations, and trust the things that you know how. Just like tonight, I've got 6 cameras in here. We went with 1 camera. Why? Because we don't want to screw it up. Instead of going out there thinking you're going to have all your shots, why don't we play the most consistent, simple plan forward? Let's play vanilla golf and see if that works. Okay? All right. Yeah, we could have a whole session on flipping the funnel. Let's get to our question, right? Doc, I see players talking about that they don't care about what other people think, but I find myself obsessed with that. What do you think about that? All right. I love this one. A couple of years ago, I was watching a motivational guy on Instagram, and I like watching him, but I'm going to give you a little insight here. I always look at their follower count. I know I'm going to get in trouble when I say this. I always look at their follower count because you can always tell when they buy followers. So be careful out there. There's a lot of people who have 100,000 and 115,000 followers, and they probably have 100,000 purchased followers. That drives me freaking nuts. Do the work, grow the message, get your currency out there. Then that works. Okay, anyway. But what he said was, I don't care what people think about me. And on the next video, he was talking about the number of likes that he had and the number of comments that he had on his video. And I thought that was funny. You don't care what people think, but you're obsessed by the likes on the videos. You know what we call people who don't really care what other people think? Sociopaths. We all care what other people think. I care what you think about Mental Game Live. And my job is I have to filter it and understand if it's feasible. Somebody just doesn't like old McDonald hat on me, a white hat. Some people doesn't like my content. Some people think that my beard should be, dyed. Who knows, right? What I care about is that the content reaches. And the way we do that is through feedback. And a lot of times I study people in my industry, the way people communicate, they all that stuff. I watch people because I want to learn. But you know what the thing about that? When we watch somebody else, we gravitate. We're like magnets to somebody whose our insecurities just happen to match what they do good. And what happens is we see 10 people who do things really, really good that tend to match and be attracted. We're attracted to it because of our own insecurities. Isn't that funny how that works? And so you have to be willing to look at it with the right lens. See, you do a lot of things really well. And you can't see what another person's thought bubble is. You don't get to see their doubts. Talked about that about the Full Swing segment. You don't get to see their insecurities. You don't get to see the times when they're putting on the mask and they're all strong. You don't see that the fact that they may be dying for attention from their father. They may be begging for a coach to tell them great job. You don't see all that. So when we see somebody else, learn from them. Don't judge your performance because of them. A lot of times what we do is we tend to assimilate a bunch of other people and be like, they always do great. No, they don't. You just didn't see them on their bad days because you replaced their great with somebody else. And next thing you know, everybody's freaking great. And that's not the case. See, this journey is dark. It's long. It's tiring. It's exhausting. If you read Break Free from Suckville, you remember I talked about it as the joy, the burden, or the joy, the job, the burden. We start off in any journey. It's fun. It's exciting. We're gaining things. Then all of a sudden it becomes a job. It's hard. It's a lot of work. Then it becomes a burden. Like, God, I got to get up and go do this again. Been coaching for 30 years. I got to do opening day again. Those are real. Those are real. But just because somebody else does something good doesn't mean you can't if you find your way to do it. So when you find yourself looking at other people and studying them, appreciate what they do. Don't use it as a way to pee in your own cereal, to step on your own toes or kick yourself in your own shins. It doesn't work. Because now what you're doing is taking their skill and making it a weapon against you. Instead, use it as a motivator. Let's go to question number 2. Question from a coach. Why are struggle and failure becoming tragic in practice? I love this question, right? I seem to lose my players when things get hard. I love studying the player of today. My youngest daughter, Caroline, always says, Dad, you always say that about these kids today. Yeah, you're right. Kids today, y'all got it harder than anybody I've ever seen. I mean that. Y'all have more pressure, more stress, more anxiety, more worries, more standards that you're trying to live up to. I'm finishing a book on anxiety right now. It is really, really good. It's really good. And it talks about this. So what happens is when we're struggling, I find that most players come into the environment now. And they come in like they got this ball of like hope and potential. They walk in and they're like, I got it. This is my portfolio. It's a done deal. And I'm going to measure it against progress and challenges. But that ball of potential isn't a ball of development. It's not a work of development. It's not a project. It's a presentation. So struggle and training becomes a rejection of what they perceive their readiness is. See, they see that as, oh my God, I'm falling short. When in reality, it should be seen as, this is the areas I need to continue to improve, because everybody has the right to improve. Every single player you coach, lead, everything has the right to get better. We got to take them and teach them that failure needs to occur in 15% of everything we do. If you're not creating failure in practice at least 15%, it's not hard enough. Okay? And if it's too hard and failure is occurring more than 15%, then we need to give them some areas of confidence. Data suggests it needs to happen in 15%. So you as a coach, if your coaches out there, you need to train your players that failure is going to happen in our practice. In games, you are going to fail. And my job is to teach you through the failure, not judge you. So I don't need you judging yourself either. But coaches, we got to be better too, because I've heard from coaches that say they just don't have it. Like, who is the right to determine if somebody's going to have it in the next 2 or 3 years? If you don't think they have it playing for you, help them find a coach that can nurture them and develop them. Give them that service. Dennis had a question. What's a good mental strategy from letting a few bad shots ruining a good round? That's a choice. But here's the deal. If I punched you, which I wouldn't do, if I punched you, can you get rid of the pain, the discomfort, the blood running down your face, the cut on your jaw? No. But if you have a desire and a purpose, that will mute out. See, what happens is in bad shots in golf, we see that as a failure of us, like it's a badge of failure. And we just like, oh, put another one on there. I suck. I can't believe I made that mistake. Why? In a good round of golf, you're going to hit 4 to 5 great shots. All the others are going to be semi-sucking shots. So get better with those semi-suck shots. See, don't make it that you're perfect. Bad shots happen. That's the competition. Sorry. That's the truth. All right. So we want to hear from you. In the future, we're going to do some live Q&A. I'm going to do some coaching in these sections, but it's going to get good. I'm blown away by the number of people who are watching live. Y'all, that feeds my soul. Basham, any other questions that we got coming out of this, you think?
Yeah, I saw some good ones. I got them started right here.
I like that one right there. I like that one right there about major injuries. That's kind of what made me a psychologist.
Let me find it. Okay, here we go. From Andrew, how do you help players returning from major injuries that deal with the mental questions in their own mind of trying to rewire the brain towards confidence and self again after body is different?
Yeah, that's why I became a psychologist. Right there, Andrew. I got injured my 3rd year at LSU. It took me 2 years. Like, I wasn't bashing. I wasn't all SEC. but I had to work my way up and fight like hell to get there. And when I finally made it, I got injured. And I lost my ability to throw. I lost my mechanics. And I lost my velocity. And I lost the faith and trust in me. And what I did was I went into a dark spot. And so when I became a psychologist, I ended up doing fine. I was really good. I didn't have all the talent in the world, but I had a lot of heart. I was one of those feel-good guys, right? But what happens when an injury happens is that we take that past and that trauma that happens, rewrites our past a little bit and glorifies the things that we did before. And now what happens is we start building a struggle in to compare against that ideal past. What we have to do, I hate the word rehabilitation, hate it, hate it, hate it. I like to see that we're building something better. We're going to get in the gym, we're going to work, we're going to take the limitations we have, but we're going to find more efficient ways to do it. And we're going to get better, and we're going to start defining it. I had a player, it was one of my favorite stories ever, returning from an ACL. We had a tragic ACL injury, and that I got involved with early on. Player had all the data in the world that showed they were coming back better, faster, stronger, everything. Player doubted it. Had heard rumblings from scouts that they weren't as good, all those other things, right? Finally, the player comes in and is like, Doc, I'm back, baby. And I'm like, I know you are. I've been showing you the data, but why do you now think you're back? He goes, went to dinner the other night with my girlfriend. And when I sat on the table, my knee was cranked up under the table. When I got up, it didn't hurt. I'm ready to go. Okay, girlfriend test. It's always a great one. But that's what happens, right? Our past is somewhat an illusion. And what we do is we reject our present instead of building it. We have to accept what we have and realize that we can do with what we have. And we start inlaying those positive things. I have a great course that I have called Psychology of Injury. I think it's somewhere on my website somewhere. So anyway, let's take one more question here, and then we're going to come back at the end and take a few more. Which one you like there, Bash? Whoop, don't hear you. We're not hearing you. Got to get him off mute. There we go.
How do you deal with recent failure to inspire and become stronger from player?
From the player? You like that one just because it said Tigers, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
100%.
Okay. All right. So how do you deal with recent failures? Failure's the greatest educator we have. When you look at the end of your career, you're going to have a bookshelf, and that bookshelf is going to have all kinds of different stories on it. It's going to have biographies of great people that you met along the way. It's going to have tragedies where you fell short. It's going to have how-to manuals of how you built your life. It's going to have thrillers, mysteries, dramas. It's going to have everything. That failure is just one book on your bookshelf. It's what you choose to make it. See, I think we have to build a resilient person who understands that the scars and the mistakes that we have and the wounds that we have, they heal. They never go away, but they heal. And they create and give us wisdom to help us perform better. So the question after failure is, what did you learn and what are we going to take with it? Well, I want to fix it, Doc. Can't fix it. It's in the past. I don't want it to ever happen again. Can't guarantee that either. When a plane crashes, knock on wood, right? Knock on wood. They send out the NTSB. They have a crash division. And why do they do that? They do that to learn from a crash that's already happened so that it'll never happen again. Will it happen again? It might. That's just more information that they need to improve overall safety. The same thing with us. I don't ever want to lose. I don't ever want to struggle, but it's the greatest educator we have. Great education is expensive and it hurts. Remember that. All right, let's get ready for segment 4. I got some myths on the mental game that I think you'll like. We'll be right back. All right, so let's talk about some myths, right? And I've got some of your more questions. We'll pull them up at the end, so don't go anywhere. And remember, you can always watch this archived. It'll be saved on my YouTube channel. And listen, this is free. There's no hook. There's no gimme. There's nothing. Okay? There's no back-end subscription, anything. This is free. But I have a favor to ask of you. I want you to tell the world about Mental Game Live and tell them why this could help them. And you're going to see bits and pieces coming out on social media, but the entire everything that we do will be on my YouTube channel. You can watch them for the next year. I mean, just watch them, a lot of it. Get the counts up, but I'm serious. Because I've got some discussions with some people coming about some good content and hopefully some giveaways and things like that. So that just makes it better. So let's dive into some myths. Okay, if you guys haven't learned by me enough lately, I'm pretty damn outspoken and I share my opinion. And I see things and it drives me nuts, right? One of the things I hate, and the first myth that I have, and let's get this up, is that practice and competition are the same. And I hear that from coaches, like, we've practiced great and we've done everything right. I don't understand why it hasn't transferred. Like, if I trained you as an astronaut in Houston, put you through the simulators and put you down in the big pool, then I shot you up on a rocket, you think they're going to feel the same? You think your mind's going to feel the same when you're in that pool? You go home every night, have dinner, go to your favorite Mexican restaurant or po' boy shop, or, go watch the Astros. And now you're up sitting on a space station with some Russian cosmonaut. You think that's the same feeling? Not even close. Not even close. What happens? Practice has high control. We can control the people. We can control the things that we do. And the consequences are kind of low. Because what's the worst that happens in practice? We look in the mirror and say, God, you suck today. Or I got beat in a practice round, or I got beat in an inter squad. Yeah, that sucks. But when you go out there and you're putting on the jersey, or you're having to put your name on a leaderboard, what happens is in competition, the control drops and the consequences rise. Think about it like this. I ask you to take a look over a balcony. Look over and look at the ground. Would you do it? Sure. Okay. Would you do it? I would do it. I'd do it on the first floor, maybe the 10th floor. Wouldn't do it on the 115th floor on a big tower in New York City. I mean, by looking over that balcony, I haven't forgotten how to stand. But the risk of watching, and the risk of falling, of the consequence, are terrible. Okay? And what happens is we get more locked in on the outcome of survival or falling to our wherever. And that's the problem. And so as a result, as consequences rise in competition, we start trying to exert more control. Just like you on that balcony, you start holding on, like, I don't want to look over. I'm okay. Right? That's what happens in competition. Pressure rises, stress rises. You start moving different, feeling different, thinking different, acting different, making different decisions. The difference is, what we have to understand is that with every competition comes the opportunity to get better there. Competition, therefore, becomes a training ground for more and more competition. It's not like coaches. I don't want you to say, you've got all the tools, now go play. No, what that's saying is, I've done all that I can control, and I have now signed off. No. Coaches, you guys are guides. You guys are guides that take people into those environments and help them navigate through it. Practice and competition are not the same thing. Okay? I always love it when I get a text from my mom in the middle of this. She's watching. So that's cool. Okay. Sorry, I had to answer that. All right, number 2. Good play builds confidence. Basham, when you went 3 for 3 in a game, were you more confident for the next game? Did you ever go 3 for 3 in a game?
Yeah, I did actually. Maybe a little bit more confident.
But fully confident, like you've got it figured out?
No, I never had it figured out.
Okay, so there was still doubt there, right? There was still doubt.
Yeah, it's a completely new scenario, circumstance.
Yeah. Okay. So while outcomes do contribute to confidence, it doesn't solve the problem. Confidence is fed by trust. And trust is built by a plan of improvement and training that's built by a vision. Now, here's the deal. The greatest thing in the world isn't confidence. It's belief. And elite confidence builds belief, which means I can handle anything that comes my way. Doesn't mean at the game. So I saw somebody put in the comments, how do you play by letting go of the outcome? We're never going to play in an event where the outcome doesn't matter. What you have to understand is you can't control the outcome, but you can face whatever challenge is in front of you. That's belief. Had a great conversation today with a professional golfer. And I said, the greatest thing that you can do is sign up, show up, and tee it up, ready for anything. You don't have to control the outcome, your feels, or anything. Okay? Don't have to do it. Because I believe that I can handle the good, the bad, and the ugly. I can work through a process and a plan to get there. That's what it's all about. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Will you get more focused in competition? It helps. There's just more clutter and noise out there. So don't think that all of a sudden you're going to learn your funnel of focus if you ain't practiced it. You got to practice your funnel. You got to practice your funnel. You got to practice it in practice and training. In a future episode, we're going to talk about how to break down practice and go about that stuff. He needs a lady at the show. Thank you, Betsy. I've got a couple ladies probably right outside here too. I would love to get on there. I don't know. Bash them. I mean, we could have a lady on at some point, right? Yep. Greg just asked a question I'm going to come back to here in a little bit. So star that one if you don't mind. All right. What about being calm is the key? I hate this. I love meditation. I love HRV work. I love all that. Show me when a player's calm that it actually helps. Now, what will happen is after the fact, the player will say, I felt a sense of calm. But were they calm or they felt a sense of calm? See, calm is ultimate acceptance. My heart can be pounding, my head racing, my palms sweating. I got to go to the bathroom where I was like, I love the feeling coming in from the bullpen, heart pounding. And yet I felt calm. But I wasn't calm. I think box breathing is great. Wendy had a question on that. Yeah, encouraging yawning like back in the day. Absolutely. Yawning works. Whatever works for you to feel comfortable. Okay? The fact is, when we're doing a tool, what we're doing is we're saying, I have something that makes me feel grounded. Whatever that is for you, make it work. If it's chewing gum, if it's humming, if it's snapping, I don't really care. What calm is accepting. I'm not fighting anymore, and I'm now flowing with what I have. It's funny, right? Because if we put heart rate monitors on people, they're not running in the 60s in competition. They're high. So definition is that ain't calm. They're accepting. All right, last one here. Once you figure out the mental side, performance improves. Yeah, I love that one. Like, this is my favorite. Doc, my entire game is there, except for the mental game. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. So we just got to figure out that last block, and you've got it all figured out. That's not how it works. See, the mental game is like the thread that weaves every aspect of what you do together. The glue, it brings things together, everything. Okay? And during those times, the mental game is going to be on point, and other times it's going to be a disaster. And guess what? Sometimes your physical game is going to be on point, and other times it's going to be a disaster too. You are never going to figure this puzzle out. So stop trying to assume that there's an answer. There's never an answer. Okay? Ever. Learn to face the challenge and face the question in front of you. Solve the problem in front of you and get ready for the next one. But if your belief is high, that next level will allow you to face that. Those are some myths. We're going to keep diving into more myths. I got your questions, whether I answer them here tonight or answer them, I got them. I'll never forget them. I've got them. I'll answer them. How did he fix Frankie? Well, his funnel sucked. His process was terrible. And his mind was racing. What we did is we got him to learn how to flip his funnel. We gave him an anchor, take a deep breath, step behind the ball, see what he needed to do, verbalize the shot he wanted to hit, then step in. We slowed it down. I added a couple steps. I wasn't trying to calm him down. His mind races. He's a drummer. You've seen him on the show. He's wild. So instead of making him calm down, we just took that energy and gave him a grounding somewhere else, then allowed him to walk in. You're going to see some more on Fixing Frankie. But here's a little secret. Episode 1 seemed to fix it, right? So More's coming, and we're going to dive in more. I'll spend some more time with Frankie here in the near future. All right, so let's go to the last segment here after this little break. All right, before I leave, I want to just take one or a couple questions here that popped up here. And one of the things that I saw that kind of caught my attention over the back of my eye here was that, you know, when we're competing, I want you to think about going on a journey. You start off and you have a goal, you have a destination in mind. Like one of my favorite movies growing up was the old movie National Lampoon's Vacation, right? And Clark Griswold and his entire family are going to go to Wally World. And they have all this ideals, and he has this grand vision of how it's going to go. And it's sorry, my stepdad just sent me a funny message. I'm sorry. It's they're going on this journey, and they're going to stop it along the way and see these different attractions, and it goes haywire. Right. But what the value of that journey was their time together and that experience together and that craziness of life. Of course, then he gets to Wally and he loses his mind. Right. But that is the greatest example of competitive journey. It will never be easy. I've dealt with players who said, Doc, when I make it, when I win an event on tour, it'll get easy. And all it does is get more difficult. All it does is require them to do more interviews, more time, and then their expectations change. And now all of a sudden, what got them to the victory was staying focused on the task at hand has now become they think that they should be better. They think that it shouldn't be that hard because they're a winner, and it causes more struggles. See, what I want you to understand is just like Wally World, on that journey to Wally World, is every day you show up and you pull a card, and that card tells you what your challenge of today is. And in that challenge, you have to solve the different tasks. Now, that would be wonderful if we had a card that did that, but we really do. We just don't know what the card is. You have to face every challenge you have in the professional game, amateur game, college game, and learn. Your potential is not telling you where you're going to go. Your focus and intention on what you're doing will. If you believe you can get there, stay focused on what you're doing and learn to become a better pro in everything you do. Guys, this is awesome. 1 hour in, and we still have hundreds of people online. Like, this is comical. I'm honored. Mental Game Live is going to do this. We're going to kill it. I want you to get everybody here. Please, please. I want to solve the problem. If you got kids out there that are trying to learn to play better, coaches that need it, it's there. Send these clips out. Send them out. Tell people to watch this. I hope this continues to improve and we can drive it. I want you to improve better. We need your content. We need your information. We need your questions. Keep it coming. Basham, anything that you think of that we saw tonight that we need to, that I can do better? Any questions?
Always.
Always.
Plenty of things to improve on.
So while we're waiting on us to actually get good at this, we're going to keep doing the best that we can, right?
That's right. Back to the drawing board tomorrow.
Back to the drawing board. All right. So let me see if there's any other questions. Let me go to the star here. There's a lot of questions. I promise I'm seeing them. Just keep coming. I got to keep some of you on the hook and keep coming back. Last question. Greg had a question I think that's interesting. Is how do you deal with the financial worries of professional golf? Study every entrepreneur you've ever been in. There's times when you feel like you're just pulling all the money together that you have to make it work. I remember one time I had an employee that I made a comment one day and I said, and I stay up every night worried about paying payroll. And his answer was, then maybe I don't need to work here. And I thought, then maybe you don't, because as a leader, I worry every single night about making payroll. Doesn't mean I've ever had a problem making it. It just means I worry about it. Financial worries are always there. Okay. What you have to do is work extra jobs, hustle, work around the clock, do whatever it takes. Because if it's a dream important enough for you, it's a dream enough to invest in you for. This has been Mental Game Live, guys. Please check me out on all my social media channels. Coming back to you. When's our next one? Do we remember? Do we know? 2 weeks?
I have to check the schedule.
Yeah, check the schedule. It's coming up.
Yeah.
Next 2 weeks, I'm at Bay Hill and the Players Championship, so I think it's the weekend after that. Okay, the week after that. But it'll be every night when we do it, it'll be at 7 o'clock Central Time. Make sure you tell people to come, watch. We're always going to try to keep them to an hour. Until then, y'all, thank you so much. I'm blown away. Let's keep getting better and focusing on how we improve our mental games one step at a time.